Okay, and welcome back. And this is an example of how to answer a structure question. So, you should have already listened to and watched the little video on what to look for in a structure question, but here's explaining with a music example. So, in this structure question, or any structure question, you should be looking for phrasing, ostinatos, types, identify, role, and diagram. The last one being pretty important and will give you the extra marks if you can do it. So, with all those other videos, if this is the first one you've watched, tops is the way, and I'd like you to structure a question. And when your approach to actually answering a question. So U is for underline, R is for read, T is for topic sentence, O is for organise, P is for plan, and S is for support. So underline the words in the question that are important. Read all the information on the page. How many times is it going to be played? Who is it performed by? All those bits and pieces, and make sure if there's sections or parts to the question that you've read all the parts. Topic sentence for each section. So a topic sentence for phrasing, for ostinato, type, etc., etc. Organise your answer into dot points. Your planning comes under with all those bits and pieces in terms of what you're answering, and S is for support, which means explain all your terms as you go. So, the sample question is, discuss the use of structure in the music excerpt. Now, unfortunately, you're probably not going to get a straight structure question. Most of the time, your structure question is tied in with something else. It might be discuss the use of structure and texture in this music excerpt. So you'd actually talk about both things. But believe it or not, you use structure in every single question you actually go listen to, because you need to be able to identify which section is which and what's happening in each one. So this is a really important concept to get right. Now, the little piece of music we've got today is a jazz piece of music called Boogie Woogie Stomp. And here we go. Okay, and that's about as much of the music we're going to listen to. As you could hear, it was quite an old recording, and some people might call that a bit of a honky-tonk piano. Okay, so in your first listening, what you should have done with your in your reading time is write down your prompts. So potty road, P for phrasing, O for ostinatos, T for types, I for identify, R for roll, and D for diagram. You should have listed all the instruments that you can hear as they enter into the song. So you would have heard the piano, and then you would have had the drums, the bass guitar, double bass, and then there's a guitar in there as well. And then you need to reread the question, making sure you're actually answering the right one. Be logical here. If the question you're looking at is talking about a string quartet, and you're listening to that, alarm bells should be going off that you're actually looking at the wrong question. So make sure that you read that information and answer the right bits correctly. And then you should be starting with a topic sentence for phrasing. And then don't forget, you need to now organise your answer and write your answer in dot points. And don't forget to support all of your answer by explaining every term as you go. Okay, so the first bit is phrasing. So you need to be looking for whether the melody is in 2, 3, 4, or 8 bar phrasing. You need to think about whether those phrases are balanced or unbalanced. And you need to see if there's any distinct use of call and response. And don't forget, if there is, when, where, how, all those bits and pieces. And you also need to think about identifying those phrasing into sections. Is it, does it change between sections? And there's our little hand to count. Okay, so our answer would look something like this. The phrasing in this piece of jazz music has the following features. Our topic sentence. And here's our organisation and plan. It is 4-bar phrasing. The phrases are even and balanced. The phrases seem to blend into one another, and in this piece of music they actually do. So that's the way that is, and there's probably not much else that you're going to do for phrasing there. So the next bit is ostinatos. Now there's a big one here, and hopefully you've all identified what that is. Don't forget, go back and listen to the music as often as you need to and just come back to this point. The advantage of these videos is you can stop, rewind, pause, all the bits and pieces you need to. Okay, so the things you're looking for are identify if there are any repeated musical patterns or ostinatos, state when, where and by who. And unlike for pitch or duration, your ostinatos are any of them. They can be rhythmic, melodic or anything. Okay, state whether the ostinato is melodic or rhythmic and what instrument plays it in which section. And is there use of call and response again? And are there any melodic ostinatos, for example, a common one like a walking bass line or a repeated chord structure or riff? So in other words, a 12-bar blues or an ice cream chord change or even an 8-bar blues or anything like that. And there's our little one-man band, the Octopus. Okay, so your answer should look something like this. Your topic sentence: an ostinato is a repeated musical pattern and there are several performed in this excerpt. They are as follows. The unifying pattern is the use of the 12-bar blues. Now it's a bit hard to hear that 12-bar blues in the beginning, but it is there and it's certainly repeated about 3 or 4 times in that excerpt. The melodic ostinato is performed by the double bass and the guitar and the left hand of the piano throughout the excerpt, except for in the very beginning of the music, because the piano is a bit more free form. And there's a rhythmic ostinato, which is performed by the drum kit when all the instruments enter after the piano introduction. And for this particular one, that's as much as you need. The big thing they would be looking for in this one is the fact that there's the 12-bar blues and that you can recognise those. One thing I didn't say there, though, it's there's basically the double bass is a walking bass line. Don't know why I missed that. Anyway, types. So you need to look for these. State what type of structure it is and give an explanation. Binary, ternary, rondo, song form, verse, chorus, strophic, through, composed, all those bits and pieces, look for them. If you can't identify it with confidence, at least state how many sections there are. Okay, so your answer should look something like this. The underlying structure in this excerpt is the basis around the 12-bar blues and has these other features. It is an instrumental piece of music that has the piano as the main instrument performing. It has an introduction, then has 2 other sections based around the 12-bar blues. And that was that one that's sort of the rolling piano bit, and then there was a slightly more disjointed part in the next part. And that's all you could do for that song because there's no other bits and pieces to identify. Okay, identify. You need to look for what instruments perform in each section. If you can't identify the sound source, that should say at least describe it in some form. In other words, a high-pitched wind instrument. And like you've got a little ensemble there, that'd be a string trio. But your answer should look something like this. So identify your topic sentence. There are 3 main sections in this excerpt and the instruments used in each section are as follows. Introduction has the piano, which is the melodic role. The section A and B, the piano is the melodic role, double bass and guitar melodic accompaniment, and the drum kit has the rhythmic accompaniment. That's identifying the instruments. Now, I've sort of included role in there, but you need to also add it again. Describe the role of each instrument in each section: melody, bass line, rhythmic accompaniment, keeping the beat, pulse, melodic accompaniment, chordal accompaniment. And we had our example of the Beatles before. In this one, it's all centered around the piano. So the roles are: the role of each instrument in each section is as follows. And so even though in the last section I said what each instrument was doing, I've broken it down into actually sections for this part. So introduction, the piano has the melodic role. In section A and B, the piano has the melodic role, double bass and guitar melodic accompaniment. You could even say chordal accompaniment, and the drum kit has the rhythmic accompaniment. Obviously, if there's more instruments, you'd obviously list all those bits and pieces. The last bit is diagram. Now this is the really important bit. If you can actually do this, you're going to do really well. I chose this song deliberately because it is a nice simple diagram and a way to do it for you. Okay, so if you have time, use diagrams to describe the form, but you really should make time. Use any shapes you wish, or even as you see how I'm going to do the next one, but label the diagram. As said, you could use shapes, or like in this one, you could actually use a graph table. So the diagram, you can see down the side I've got piano, double bass, guitar and drums. Obviously you'd list all the instruments if you had them. And along the bottom you can see that there's introduction, section A and section B. So for this one, piano's used all the way through, so I've just simply drawn a line all the way through those bits and pieces. Double bass, it's really only in section A and B. The guitar's the same and the drum's the same. As I said, in this particular diagram it's quite simple, but I deliberately chose that one. So that's how to do an actual question on structure. Good luck. Don't forget, structure is not usually on its own. Sometimes it is, and if it is, it's because they've got something a bit tricky in there. Okay, and that's all it for structure.